Welcome to season 13 of the Parenting Aces podcast, a proud member of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. Today we are talking nutrition with Erika Villalobos. She is part of the new CoachLife platform, so I'm excited to have her on. But more importantly, equally importantly to the fact that she's part of CoachLife, she is a former junior and collegiate tennis player. And so she understands the specific challenges that junior and college players go through in trying to fuel and hydrate their bodies properly for training and for competition. And so in this episode, Erika shares with us some very specific suggestions for how our kids need to be eating and drinking during the week for practices, but also during tournament time. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Also, be sure that you check the show notes for a discount code so that you can see Erika's information on CoachLife.com. You can also go to our discounts page on our website and always get those discount codes there. But for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with nutritionist Erika Villalobos. Welcome to Parenting Aces, Erika. It's a pleasure to meet you and a pleasure to get to chat with you today.
Thanks so much, Lisa. It's a pleasure to be here.
So it's been a minute since we've done a nutrition-based podcast, so I'm really excited to kind of dig into some of the basic information that growing tennis players and full-grown tennis players need to understand about how to fuel their bodies properly. And I love that we've got an expert with us today to share all that. But before we jump in, I'd love for you to share a little bit of your tennis story with our audience.
Sure. So I grew up in Costa Rica, and I was very competitive for the country, but not worldwide. We had a tournament here, a junior tournament that was a Group A. That's like the highest level, and we would always get our butt beat by by everybody else. And so I decided by the age of 14, I begged my parents to let me go to a tennis academy in Florida so I could have more competition there. And yeah, in fact, when, I was 14 at the time, and then I would have the 12-year-olds play against me from other countries and they would beat me. So that definitely encouraged me to up my game and, make sure that I was up to par with their level. And I was practicing 5 hours a day at Rick Macy and also going to school. So, yes, I definitely had to learn how to eat properly, which we didn't have any guidance at the time. It was a while back. So, yes, I that's where the nutrition comes in because I wish I would have had somebody to guide me to be able to feel properly for those 5 hours of tennis and not be exhausted or try to eat the things that I thought were correct but were not correct. So yes, I wish I would have had a lot more guidance with that, because it would have made a big difference in my game and my fueling and how I felt in practice as well as in tournaments. Then after that, I went on to play in college, and
Where did you play?
I played at Rice University in
In
Texas.
Houston? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. So yeah, that was great. That taught me, how to work in a team. And that was very different from my juniors, which was, it's all individual. So you have to learn how to work as a team effort. And that was also a great experience. But again, it was a while back. So I didn't have much of a nutrition support as they do now in universities, which has improved a lot, thankfully, which is great to see. But yes, I definitely feel that I would have done a lot better with my performance if I would have had the correct feeling strategies. Yeah.
And what was your major in college?
So I majored in business economics. So nothing that had to do with nutrition, just because both of my parents were in banking and finance. So, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so I went that path for a little bit. I got my MBA and I worked in banking for a while. And then I was like, no, this is definitely not what I'm passionate about. So my second career is nutrition. So then I applied to NYU and I got a master's in nutrition at NYU. So yes, this is definitely what I'm passionate about, learning and teaching others as well. So.
And how long have you been back in Costa Rica?
So I've only been back for no, not a long time. I was just visiting, but
Mhm.
I live in New York.
Oh, great, great.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to really talk about what does nutrition mean for
Hmm.
young athletes whose bodies are still developing and whose brains are still developing, and why it's important to fuel the body properly and hydrate the
Hmm.
body properly, what that can mean in terms of overall physical and mental development, but also in terms of performance.
Hmm.
So let's start with just the basics. If you
Hmm.
were putting together an eating plan, and I hate the word diet because to me, diet means deprivation, and
Hmm.
that's not what we're talking about here. We're
Hmm.
talking about proper fueling, not
Hmm.
not keeping away from certain foods necessarily. So if you could devise, an eating plan for, let's say, a developing tennis player anywhere from age 8 to hitting puberty, what are some of the important pieces of that eating plan that parents and players and coaches as well need to be aware of?
Sure. So the simplest way of teaching it is with the performance plate, which will divide the plate into different sections, instead of trying to do something more complicated like macros, which I don't advise for children. So yes, definitely we need the carbohydrate sources. Always try to do whole foods as much as possible. That is the goal. And also, protein. Are they getting the adequate protein in order to recover properly? And, they're growing. So that's even more important to get the proper amount of protein. But a lot of the times people forget about fats and how important, like you were saying now, like for your brain, fats are incredibly important for your brain, for your hormones. Their reproductive systems are growing as well, like they're going through a huge change, and that requires fats, and people don't talk about this enough. They kind of leave it to the side, like, oh, it's just a filler. No, but it's actually extremely important. So those three parts of the diet need to be extremely important, and like you say, not focus on what we're taking out of the diet, but definitely making sure they're getting enough protein, getting enough whole foods. And yes, a certain percentage of the diet can be fun foods. I don't like to call it junk food. They can be fun foods, definitely. But yes, definitely they need to get the right amount of protein, for their age, for the amount of practices, the amount of hours that they're practicing. Yes, it's extremely important. Hmm.
When you say whole foods, what do you mean by that? Give us some
Yes.
examples.
So, for example, with carbohydrates, so the more carbohydrate dense foods would be things like fruits, like vegetables that grow below the ground. That's how I like to put it. So, potatoes, sweet potatoes, starchy root vegetables, those are really great. Um, Trying to focus more on those, versus if you have the budget to buy organic, well, by all means, great. If you don't, still a much better source than, I feel, the processed foods, the things that you find in the aisle. Don't like to demonize that either, but yes, if you're able to choose the whole foods more often, or around the perimeter of the supermarket, then that's better than the ones between the aisles. Yes.
So by whole foods, you mean food in its natural state. So a
Yes.
fresh fruit, a fresh vegetable, a fresh piece of meat that's not covered in, some sort of processed breading or something like that. So again, I love the idea of shopping the perimeter first and
Mm-hmm.
trying to fill up your cart with items from the perimeter of the store. And then obviously you can't always prepare fresh fruits and vegetables. You don't always have access to cooking, utensils, a kitchen, whatever. So sometimes you do have to have that prepackaged stuff. And you're not
Yes.
saying eliminate that completely,
No.
but make it a minor part of the overall diet.
Yes. As much as possible, if you can stick to the one ingredient foods, that's always going to be your best bet. Mm-hmm.
And when you said, have the percentages based on your age and the amount of activity that you're getting, how do you figure that out? Is there some sort of magic formula?
Yes, there is a magic formula.
Oh, good.
So
I was kind of saying that facetiously, but yay. I like magic.
not so magic, but yes. So depending on their age, the amount of hours that they train, there is a prescribed carbohydrate range, but that's just a general guideline. That's something that we start out with, and then we give those to the player, and then depending on how they're performing, then we can deviate from that. We can add or subtract. I mean, it is a range, so it just depends on how they're feeling, how they're feeling their best. Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I mean, we've heard, about these very specific eating plans for athletes and, testing the blood and testing salt content of the sweat and all of these things. Is that necessary in order to put together a healthy eating plan for especially, junior athletes that are still growing and developing?
So for anybody, even adults, the key takeaway of this is to make something that they'll want to do. So if you give them something too complicated or something that is like, oh my God, I hate quinoa, or fill in the blank, then obviously they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
So you have to adapt to them. So whatever they're eating, I have to help make substitutes that they're okay with, and then still keep some of the foods that they like in there. But it's very individualized. I mean, I feel if somebody gives you like a blanket diet, then they're not really making an effort into individualizing it and making it specifically for you. And that's the whole point of a consult. Mhm.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about like a typical day for a young athlete, a kid that's going to school, also pursuing tennis at a high level. Um, let's start with waking up and the first things
Mhm.
that they consume before they head off to school. What are some suggested items that you would like to see them include on the breakfast plate or in a glass or whatever it is that they're consuming?
Sure. I mean, it depends because let's say for me, I'll speak for myself. I'll put myself as an example. So I had to train 2 hours before school. So we would get up at the crack of dawn and train from 5 to 7. So we didn't really have much time. We kind of just, got up and went. So grab a fruit, grab if it's a whole food, great. But if you're like, this doesn't sit well with me and I need something quicker, like for example, some fresh juice or something that's like simpler carbs that you're able to digest better, great. But it's so individualized. Some people are able to tolerate more food than others, so it just depends on the carbohydrate source. But if you only have an hour or less, then it's recommended to just do some carbs because that's what you're able to process. If you
Okay.
have more time, then the more time you have, the bigger the meal can be and can have more protein and fats, um, because that makes the meal absorb slower. So then you do need more time to absorb that meal. But if it's like a quick grab and go, then yes, some sort of simple carb that you are able to tolerate and that you enjoy, will always be your best bet.
So let's, again, giving specific examples. You said grabbing a piece of fruit is always great. Whole grain waffle, whole grain toast, any of
Yes,
that?
yes, absolutely. Toast with
Yeah.
some honey on it. That's a good option too. So yes, things that you enjoy, but if you're able to grab fruit more often, then yeah, that'll be better.
Okay. And so, all right, now we've had that first morning practice. We're going to go sit in school for the next 6 to 8 hours. How do we fuel through that period?
So you would have to bring some kind of breakfast with you. Um, that would have to include protein, and eggs are a great source of protein, or you could do turkey, or you could do turkey and cheese, like a turkey and cheese sandwich. If you're training, let's say 5 hours a day, you're going to train again in the afternoon, then you definitely need something like a chocolate milk or something with protein and carbs right after you're done with the training, because your body does need to recover very quickly for the next session during the day. If you only train once a day, that is not necessary. You could just, with what you're eating during the day, that's more than enough to recover. But yes, if you're training twice a day, then you need to pay more close attention to right after your first practice. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then now we're done with school. We're headed to our second practice of the day, or maybe our first practice of the day, but we only have 30 minutes. I mean, obviously we need something because it's been several hours since lunch and we're about to go work really hard for at least a couple hours.
Yes. Yeah. So absolutely pairing a fruit with some protein, either some natural peanut butter if possible, or string cheese, or some nuts as well with the fruit. Something is so that the carbs will last a little bit longer, and your blood sugar won't spike up so quickly, and give you, lasting energy for your practice. That'll be your best bet. And you do need to get in that protein in. So we do need to sprinkle it throughout the day as well.
So nuts are a good source for that. Natural peanut butter, you said, hard-boiled eggs travel well.
Yes.
That's another great protein source. Or doing like a wrap with, a tortilla and a slice of turkey, a slice of cheese. Is
Yes,
that
absolutely.
okay?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. And then obviously now practice is over. It's time for dinner. That's when you can really load up with the calories, right? And not have to worry so much about how quickly everything's going to digest and get absorbed.
Yes, and even at lunchtime, you have a decent amount of time to have a solid meal with protein, fats, carbs. So yeah, lunch and dinner would definitely be the biggest one.
So I want to add the hydration piece into this. We
Yes.
see a lot of kids, filling up on sports drinks, using drinks as a substitution for food. Is
Mhm.
that a good idea, a bad idea, a situational good idea?
It's a slippery slope. So if you shouldn't be drinking these things throughout the day, because nobody needs those calories during the day. You can get them from food. But if you're going through a long practice that's more than an hour and a half, and it's very intense, then yes, you do need sports drinks to fill up those glycogen stores little by little. But that would be the only time that I recommend the sports drinks, because if it's less than an hour and the practice is not that intense, you don't need sugar and the sports drinks. You would just need the electrolytes. Mm-hmm.
And so what would you recommend drinking?
So any sports drink that is sugar free, I like the ones that have stevia in them, because that's an artificial sweetener that is accepted for children, that is not harmful. But with adults, I would try and do your research on what is recommended in Europe, especially because they are much more strict with the guidelines on the dyes and things like that. So if you're hardcore and want the most nutritious electrolyte drink, definitely look into that, because yes, there's some dyes and things like that that are not recommended. Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it. All right,
Yes.
now let's switch gears and go to a tournament situation. And
Yes.
we know in a lot of junior tournaments, not ITF level, but especially USTA, a lot of UTR events as well. At the junior level, kids are playing multiple matches in a day. And if the
Mm-hmm.
tournament offers both singles and doubles, sometimes they're playing 3, 4 matches in a day.
Mm-hmm.
How do you fuel yourself properly at the beginning of the day? How do you maintain that fuel level throughout the day? And then what
Mm-hmm.
should you be doing at the end of the day to prepare for tomorrow? I know that's a
Sure.
lot in one question, but
That's okay. Yeah, so first off, the biggest thing here is to practice that strategy before the tournament. A lot of people make the mistake of just going in there and just cramming in as many carbs as they can in the morning, and then they feel like crap, their stomach is hurting. So they need to practice this beforehand, at the weekend before, or weekend where they play a couple of matches just for practice. They need to practice the strategy before, because everybody's different. So, I'll tolerate bagels well, but you won't. You'll tolerate the waffles better with the peanut butter. I don't like the peanut butter. So we definitely need to do the performance plate that is for a tournament. So that would be at least half of your plate with carbohydrates. So that could be fruits, starches, breads, things that are high in carbs. So fill half of your plate with that. And then a fourth of your plate with protein. Could be eggs, could be cottage cheese, could be Greek yogurt, whatever you like. That's also important. And the other fourth of your plate would be, some sort of, if you can tolerate a little bit of vegetables, that's great. And then you could do the fats, definitely include some fats in there, some peanut butter. If you cook the eggs in butter, that's good too. Yes, any sort of fat, or if you want to put cheese on the eggs, that also works. But yes, the carbohydrates are going to be your main source of fuel. So that's really important. And you also have to make sure that you're timing it properly. So if you have a good 4 hours before your match, then that's when you can do the half a plate of carbohydrates. If you have 2 hours before your match, then you have to do something smaller, like a sandwich, or something with protein and carbs, but not too much. And then if you have an hour before, like we were talking about, then you do need to do just the carbs, like, a piece of toast with honey or an apple or something, or pretzels. And the hydration is incredibly important. So you got to start hydrating the night before. I would start hydrating with something with sugar in it. That would be the only time where I would say, yes, drink the electrolyte drinks with sugar in them starting the day before, so that you're fueled properly, as well as the salt. The salt is incredibly important to retain the hydration in your body. So that's extremely important, to be sipping on an electrolyte drink with sugar during your tournament. Not when you're at school, when you're at a tournament. And so then you would keep that up during the day. You play your match. Right after you're done with your match, you gotta drink something with protein and carbs. 3-to-1 ratio would be perfection, but we're not aiming for perfection. But if you could do a chocolate milk or a fruit, and, some other form of carb, of fruits and pretzels, and then a little bit like a cheese stick, something with some protein, that would be ideal for recovery. But that becomes extremely important at a tournament because, like you're saying, they're playing more than 2 matches. So they need to recover as quickly as possible. So they can't just leave this up to chance. And then leading up to the next game, they have to do, little bits of carbohydrates every hour. Whatever snacks they tolerate. If they tolerate granola bars, great. Pretzels, great. Fruit, whatever carbs they can tolerate, they need to be having some every hour before the second match as well. So yes, that's extremely important. And even pro athletes don't do this.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of them not do it. And I'm like,
yeah. And it's the small margins, right? Just like everything.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And so, okay, this is before the match, between matches. Then let's say you've won your last match of the day, you're going to get to play again tomorrow. How do you get the body ready? Because this is, we see, especially kids that for a period of time, they're one and done at tournaments. And then all of a sudden they have that breakthrough event where, oh my gosh, I'm still here on the third day. I've never been here on the third day. My body is trashed because I've never done this before. How do we
Yes.
help them untrash themselves?
So maybe explaining the science a little bit. Kids are really smart and they fact check you on everything now.
Yes.
So, so it's really important to explain to them that their bodies can only store a certain amount of carbs, a certain amount of calories and carbs in your liver, in your muscles, and in your blood. So let's say that's 2,000 calories. That's like the upper limit of an adult of carbs. So if you're done playing for 3 hours, you already you ate up those carbs in your body. So you need to be. That's why you need to be drinking Gatorade or whatever electrolyte drink you have with sugar during your match to keep your blood sugar stable. You have to be eating carbohydrates before, you have to be eating them after. Like it's like a job. It's like your second job. And the third day, the reason why they don't have any fuel is because they've been depleting their body for 2 days and they're not replenishing it fast enough. So by the third day, yeah, they don't have a lot of fuel in their body. And then they didn't recover. And then, yes, to your point, they're exhausted. So yes, that's where it comes. What's extremely important is the right after having that protein in, the 10 to 20 grams of protein and 3 times as many carbs right after, like with that chocolate milk. And then making sure that they're having like little bits of carbohydrate throughout the day with the electrolyte drink with sugar in it, as well as having a good meal, a good dinner with some pasta or whatever carbs they enjoy, rice, potatoes.
Does
But
it
yes,
matter what
definitely.
they eat at night? I mean, because they've got presumably at least 8 hours for that food to digest and to get ready. Are there bad foods to eat at night?
Like very high fat foods are not, because they're going to take the place of the carbohydrates and they're going to fill them up. So, fried foods, things like that, those aren't recommended. The better. If you can get more carbs in there and less fat, to avoid any stomach distress in that situation, that would be the best case scenario. Like have some pasta with tomato sauce and some lean ground beef or lean turkey, things like that with some cheese on it. That would be ideal. Just not a lot of the oils. And, I know it's tough if you're at a restaurant because everything is full of oil.
Yeah.
But if you could have something that is lower in fat and higher in carbohydrates, that will definitely help you the next day.
And I will say, I mean, just from my own experience doing this with my son, not only are we concerned about what they're putting in their body, but you also have to remember the kids are they get a little nervous before their matches. So introducing new foods during a
Mm-hmm.
tournament, not a great idea. New
Mm-hmm.
drinks during a tournament, not a great idea because their stomach's already a little wonky just from the butterflies of
Yes,
competing.
absolutely. Absolutely. That's why it's so important for them to practice this beforehand and they feel comfortable with the foods that they're eating because as to your point, it's really important that they're familiar foods. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's talk about on-court nutrition during a match, what they should be eating at side changes, eating and drinking. And,
Mm-hmm.
I know now there are all these, little chews and things like that. Is that something you recommend, or is there something else that's better for them to choose to have on side changes?
Mm-hmm. So again, it comes to personal preference and to what they can tolerate. So if, there's chews, there's gels, there's people eat fruit during the changeovers as well. I've seen that. And so whatever carbohydrates they tolerate and feel best with, I have them try different things and whatever they feel best on, whether it be a gel or a chew or fruit or banana. Uh, those I would think that they are get processed slower.
Mhm.
So, but some people feel better with them. So I don't argue with the player. I just if they feel better on whatever carbohydrate, then I definitely, I recommend the simpler carbs. Definitely not something complex with fiber in it. So it should be low fiber, low fat. Yeah, wouldn't be recommending a burger. I've seen pros eat a burger and a changeover. I wouldn't recommend that. But yes, it would have to be like a low fat, low fiber carbohydrate source. Yeah.
Okay. And, also we need to get better at reading labels, right? And understanding
Mm-hmm.
what it is we're eating. So if you are looking at the chews or the gels, look at the label carefully because some of them are meant to be high carb, low fat, low protein, and some are,
Mm-hmm.
high meant to be high protein for like a recovery source. Don't eat
Mm-hmm.
the
Yes.
wrong thing at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Understand, I mean, and this is what you keep saying, Erika, and I just want to make sure people hear this. While you're active, it's the carbs that your body needs because that's the
Yes.
energy source. Once you're done playing and you're in recovery mode, whether it's a short 30 to 60-minute recovery between matches or your big recovery at the end of the day, that's when the protein comes in and the fats
Yes.
come in. Am I saying that
Exactly.
properly? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Is there still this mindset of, drinking X number of ounces of fluids at side changes and X number of ounces of fluids after you come off court? Are nutritionists still recommending to weigh before and after matches and to make up the fluid loss? Is that I've been out of the loop for a while, so you're educating me as well as the rest of our audience here.
Of course. Yeah. So I wouldn't do because you were saying something about measuring the sodium in the blood. I mean, if you have the money, do it. But there's some sweat patches that are very simple to use. And then you'll determine how much sodium you're losing per hour. And then that will definitely help determine your sodium losses. And I feel that's the most important part, to be able to determine that, because some people will lose more salt than others. Some people have the salty sweat where
Mhm.
everything gets white, and some people don't even sweat that much and they're under the same sun and climate. So determining how much sodium you lose will definitely help with uh, preventing cramping and other serious uh, recovery issues that you could get after a match. So yes, definitely getting one of those sweat patches. I think they're like $20, and determining how much sodium you're losing per hour. That will
Mhm.
definitely help you determine how much you need to drink per hour. But yeah, I would say ballpark, you could do 8 sips every changeover. That would be a good place to start. Um, but it definitely depends on how much sodium, at least like 300 milligrams of sodium per hour would be a good place to start as well. And 30 to 60 grams of carbs. Some, depending how much you tolerate. Some people tolerate up to 90 grams per hour. So yes, that's also, a gut issue. So
Mhm.
whatever you can tolerate.
So again, practice it before the
Yes.
tournament.
Yeah.
Don't do it for the first time during the
Yes.
tournament.
Exactly.
Talk to us a little bit about pickle juice and coconut
Hmm.
water and
Hmm.
these other drinks that have kind of become popular, then kind of
Hmm.
faded, they come back, and
Hmm.
what's good, what's bad?
Sure. So pickle juice is great just because it's high in sodium. So that'll definitely help if you don't like Gatorade or, other electrolyte drinks that are high in sodium. Um, Element, yeah, Element is pretty high in sodium. So that's a good one. And but it doesn't have the sugar. So you would definitely have to add a sugar source to that. But you were saying coconut, what was the other one that you mentioned?
Coconut
Oh, the
water,
pickle juice. The
yeah.
pickle juice, yes. Yeah, the pickle juice, if you like pickle juice and it's, and you sweat a lot, and that's definitely a good source of sodium. So you
Mm-hmm.
could definitely use that for sodium. And then we have the coconut water. Coconut water, not ideal because it doesn't have any sodium. It's very high in potassium. That's that's great, but the sodium is really what's going to help you uh, prevent the cramping. So that's what we need to make sure we get. Hmm.
So there's in recent years been a ton of talk about the importance of electrolytes and replenishing electrolytes.
Hmm.
But really, is it all electrolytes that we need to be concerned with, or is it really mainly just the sodium that we need to be concerned with?
Sodium being the most important, especially in hotter climates, that's key.
Mm-hmm.
But potassium is also important to have ideal levels. But you could get that with food as well. You can get that with fruits and vegetables. So not too concerned if the athlete has an all-around diet. But magnesium is also one that would be important to supplement with, I would say, because our soils are now pretty depleted of it. So something like magnesium glycinate, it definitely helps with muscle soreness, recovery, and sleep. So that's definitely something that I would recommend. It won't hurt.
Okay. So that's a good segue. I was going to ask you about supplements and
Mhm.
vitamins and things like that. Um, I years ago, I mean, I'm talking 25 years ago, a nutritionist said to me, "I eat my vitamins. I don't take my vitamins." And I thought that was really interesting for somebody that has access to vitamin-rich foods.
Mhm,
But
mhm,
you don't always have that access, and
mhm.
or you don't like them, and so you're not consuming them. You still
Right.
need those nutrients. What are your thoughts about like a one a day type multivitamin versus individual supplements for various nutrients?
Mhm. Yes. So a multivitamin is not going to hurt anybody. So if you just take it and it'll fill the gaps in your diet, um, that's great. Uh, but you do have to make sure you have a good diet. You can't just be like, okay, I'm just going to take this whey protein powder and this multivitamin and be done with it. No, it's much better to get your protein from whole food sources. It's a supplement. So, yes, you can supplement with it, but the majority of your diet should come from, you know, a better balance of whole foods with a small amount of processed. But that being said, there are some deficiencies in teenagers that we do need to be careful with. The iron and the calcium, especially. Those are really important to pay attention to. Um, Not so much vitamin D because we're outside all the time, the tennis
Yeah.
players. But yes, the calcium is really important, especially in women. So those are things that we need to, look for calcium rich foods. If you don't drink milk, you could do, any source of milk that is, plant-based with that is calcium enriched. You could do that. You could do dairy products. You could all like Greek yogurt or cheese. Um, yes, you could also do that. You could do with the iron if you get any source of of meat that you enjoy. That's a great source of iron. More than the plants. The plants are harder to get the iron from. It's a little bit more It's a little bit. It can be done, but it's a little bit trickier. You need to consume it in a certain way. So yes, just things to look out for.
And so if we have an athlete that's vegan or vegetarian, how do we make sure they're getting the nutrients they need when they're,
Mhm.
they're eliminating whole sections of foods from what
Mhm.
they're consuming?
Yes.
Are
So yeah, mhm. Parents need to pay a really close watch on them because they need to be having the right amino acid combinations in order for them to get the protein. Like, one easy example is like rice and beans. They need to be eating these together. So it's a lot more complicated, basically.
Well, and I was going to say, I
Yes.
mean, that to me is a prime example of when it would be really helpful to consult with a nutritionist,
Yes.
right? And really make sure that your child, especially if they are still growing, that they are getting the proper nutrients to maximize bone health, blood health, brain
Absolutely.
development. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, getting enough fats is crucial. Getting B12 shots if you're vegan is extremely important. B12 deficiencies have even been linked to depression. So, yes, extremely important, especially the vegans. The vegetarians, I'm not so worried about, but the vegans, yes, definitely need somebody to guide them.
Okay.
Yes.
I want to just, before we wind up, talk about the fact that you have recently become part of the CoachLife platform. And that's how you and I connected. And I wanted to just give you the opportunity to talk about why you decided to get involved with CoachLife and what you are going to be offering through their platform.
Mhm. Of course, yeah. So I I would have loved it when I was a lot younger than I am now to have a platform where it had all these pros that, taught all these incredible players, give me their advice and tips, and they're all in one place. So I think it's extremely helpful for juniors, especially that are looking for like a one-stop shot kind of place where you can get the advice from all these different coaches that are amazing and have taught a lot of pros. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm extremely passionate about helping athletes because I didn't get that when I was playing tennis. So I feel that if I would have gotten that guidance, it would have helped me so much in terms of everything in with eating disorders, with managing my carbs, with managing my weight, with knowing how to fuel properly, all these things that I had no idea about and I had to navigate myself, and I clearly did it wrong. So I wish I would have had that, and that's what I'm offering. I really want to help athletes perform their best and feel their best and when they're playing and they don't feel exhausted.
So I just want to remind our audience that we do have a relationship with CoachLife here at Parenting Aces, and CoachLife has set up discount codes for all of you to use, and we will have those codes in the link of the show notes on parentingaces.com. They're also listed on our discounts page on our website. So check out Erika's videos, absolutely. And her contact information will be in the show notes as well. So if you want to reach out to her and schedule a consult to discuss your child's nutrition needs and how you can improve on that, she is available for that. Also, she has videos up on the CoachLife platform that will help you and your junior players understand why they need to fuel themselves better and how it's going to impact their performance in the short term and in the long term.
Yes, free videos.
Free videos, for sure. Erika, anything I haven't asked you that we need to touch on today?
No, I think that's it. I just wanted to thank you for having me on. It's been great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for taking time. And I want to invite you to come back anytime if there's
Thank
something,
you.
an issue that people start asking you about that you feel like our audience could benefit from. I would love to have you back to talk about that, because I think nutrition's one of those topics that everybody thinks they know the right way to tackle it, right? They think they know about the proper sports drinks or the proper on-court foods to have and all of that.
Mhm.
But really, it's very nuanced. And
Mhm.
there's not that it's right and wrong, it's that there's good and better. And we
Mhm.
want you to
Yes.
have better. We want all of
Yes.
you to have better. So
Absolutely.
Erika's here to help with that. I hope you'll all check out her videos on coachlife.com. Again, we'll have the links and the discount code in the show notes. Erika, again, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. And to my audience, thank you so much for tuning in. We will catch you next time on Parenting Aces. Parenting Aces is providing this podcast as a public service. Reference to any specific product, service, or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by Parenting Aces, Lisa Stone, or Fit for Two Inc. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on this program is not and does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Always do your own due diligence before purchasing, hiring, or using any product, service, or provider.